welcome to High Drama. Did the plays get their just desserts this time around? Hmm. We'll start off with Barbara Campbell's book and lyrics and Brad Ross's music for Just Desserts, a musical bake-off. It's about a baking contest at the Jefferson County Fair. There are 5 very different contestants. Gina Lamparella as Jean, an introverted nurse who never expected to be in the finals. Laura Nicole Sherwood as Brandy, who is as loud and extroverted as Jean is quiet. J.P. Sorrow as Lou, who is from Brooklyn and a long line of restaurateurs. Tori Jade Lopez as Emma is very competitive and really, really wants to win. And finally, Clea Blackhurst as Mildred, who is a CEO and 4-time champion. Zach Elliot Litherland as local weatherman is a reluctant, falsely smiling MC. This is a very cute, heartwarming kind of story. Everyone's life isn't perfect, and they are hoping that winning will give them the boost they need right now. But how far will they go to win? The songs are quite catchy and some are quite soulful. The fake baked goods still manage to make my mouth water. Everyone had beautiful voices, and Elliot Litherland really got to show off his chops. But to me, Clea Blackhurst is always a standout in any show. Of course, she has to be the bad guy as she is corporate, but she always exudes such warmth that it is hard to imagine. But competitions don't always bring out the best in people. I think you will find this play delectable. Happy face.
Erica Schmidt's The Disappear, presented by Audible Theater, is now playing at the Minetta Lane Theater through February 22nd. At its center is Benjamin, a celebrated filmmaker with a carefully curated reputation and a remarkably fragile ego, played with fearless self-absorption by Hamish Linklater. His wife, Mira, portrayed by Miriam Silverman, is a best-selling novelist whose professional success somehow coexists with near invisibility at home. Their teenage daughter, Dolly, played with quiet intensity by Anna Moroden, absorbs the anxiety of a collapsing world by turning inward. The arrival of 2 outsiders disrupts this already brittle family dynamic. Madeline Brewer plays Julie, a young actress hungry for opportunity, while Rafe, a handsome and powerful movie star, portrayed by Kelvin Harrison Jr., threatens Benjamin's authority simply by recognizing Mira's talent and treating her as an equal. What follows is an unraveling of creative, marital, and generational power. The production is polished and ambitious, occasionally struggling to balance satire and sincerity, but never really losing its grip. I didn't leave dazzled, but I didn't leave disengaged. I left thinking and still debating it on the way home. And sometimes that's exactly what good theater does. I'm going to give this one Mixed Faces Plus.
Roman Freud's Beneath the Ice of the Vistula is a relationship between Lydia, played by Katie McLean, and Adam, played by Roman Freud, in pre-World War II Warsaw. Adam is trying to compose a cello suite and hires Lydia to cook, clean, and do housework chores for him so he can concentrate on composing his music. He gives her his only key to lock him in so he can't leave. He seems convinced that he needs total isolation to compose. Lydia is Christian and comes from a small Polish village, and Adam is a lapsed Jew who has turned his back on his family to be more European and cosmopolitan. They are both volatile people. Lydia composes exquisite recipes, while Adam composes beautiful music. Lydia is aware of what is happening to the Jews and of Hitler's imminent threat. Adam is content to stay in his apartment with his beloved plant. Occasionally, Adam has odd dreams of Ravel that were jarring as they didn't really relate to what was going on, and that's played by Brad Fryman. I thought the acting was more convincing than the actual play, and the title made no sense at all to me. However, I do recommend the Cabbage Pies at Intermission for $10. I give it a mixed face. Douglas Lackey's Hans Litten, the Jew who cross-examined Hitler, is a little-known historical fact how Hans Litten, with a strong sense of justice, took on that clownish upstart Hitler. And remember, this is pre-World War II, so this is like 1931. Hans' father, Frederick, an eminent law professor, is worried about his son's future. Hans only cares about art history and Mozart, but his dad convinces him that he can help people out with law. Hans does love to argue. So he joins the firm of Ludwig Barbasch, where he has a predilection for defending communists, but won't join the party. Things come to a head when Hans takes over the defense of the Eden Dance Palace, where Hitler's Nazi stormtroopers went into a communist-friendly bar and beat up the patrons. The stormtroopers claim self-defense. Well, Hans is out to prove that Hitler is far from being for order and democracy, but promotes violence. Hans plans on cross-examining Hitler, who at this point in 1931 is still perceived as a joke rather than a threat. Before that, Barbasch and him go to the Threepenny Opera and meet up with Weill and Brecht. They are not idiots and realize it is time to flee Germany. Everyone tries to convince Hans not to go after Hitler, as it is suicide. Even his mother is worried for Hans' safety. It is interesting to see what hindsight can bring to an historical situation. We in the audience know what happens with Hitler, but if you are in the thick of it and have a rational brain, you can't conceive of consequences. And I am grateful to Douglas Lackey for bringing this unknown event to my attention. Sometimes the action and acting got a bit clunky, but it is such an important story that I forgave all flaws. I was very pleased to see Alex Rowe from Metropolitan Playhouse did the sets. This gets a happy face minus.
Joe White's Blackout Songs begins with two people at an AA meeting. In the show's program, they're simply billed as him and her. Their actual names are briefly mentioned in the show, but what matters more is the connection between them. From that first introduction, we're drawn into a relationship that feels immediate, magnetic, and a little bit dangerous. This isn't a straightforward love story. Instead, the play unfolds in fragments. Memories blur, moments repeat, time slips forward and backward without warning, arguments echo, tenderness turns sharp. It mirrors the experience of blackout, an emotional desire without ever really spelling it out for us. Abby Lee brings a striking vulnerability to the character known as her, balancing bravado with deep insecurity. Opposite her, Owen Teague makes the character him relentless and emotionally exposed. Their chemistry feels lived in and volatile, like two people who can't quite hold on and can't quite let go. The production surrounds them with stark lighting and pulsing sound that capture disorientation and memory loss in ways dialogue alone never could. Running about 100 minutes at the Robert W. Wilson MCC Theater Space through February 28th, Blackout Songs is intimate, unsettling, and deeply human. It doesn't hand you easy answers. It simply invites you to witness the cycle, and that's what makes it stick with you long after you've left the theater. It's hard to give this one a happy face because the subject matter is so deep and dark. But this was an outstanding show with two fabulous actors, so I'm definitely giving this one a big happy face.
At Theater for the New City is Nika Ray's The Cry of the Butterfly, which is ostensibly about Nicholas Ray, the famous film director, and his relation to his family, which was basically non-existent. Nicholas's daughter, Nika, has written a tell-all book called Ray by Ray that she is promoting with a podcaster. Fade to the real story. Betty Ute, a former dancer who appeared in many movies, was married to Nicholas and had two daughters, Julie and Nika. As brilliant as Nicholas Ray was as a director, he was a terrible father and husband, abandoning his family for years at a time. Betty, a self-absorbed, imperfect mother, is dying of cancer and hallucinates wrenching conversations with her dead husband and the most important person in his life, James Dean. Her daughters know nothing about the cancer and are there to celebrate their mom's birthday. Past squabbles and hurt feelings emerge. Too much drinking and cake eating to compensate for life's disappointment. This is a play for cinephiles. You get tidbits from Ray's and Dean's movies, and there's lots of Hollywood gossip mixed with a dramatic, dysfunctional family story. The acting was wonderful and brought all of these people to life. This was like a fun summer read. Hollywood backstory mixed with the soap opera plot. Plus, the costumes by Wendy Talkin were stunning. Joe John Bautista directed this with a nice blending of movie clips, the ghosts of Ray and Dean, and the reality of Betty and her daughters. Happy face minus.
Alexander S. Burmage's I Wish My Life Were Like a Musical is currently playing at Soho Playhouse through February 28th. So, what's it about? It's not one big sweeping plot. It's something better. It's a love letter to musical theater people, the performers, the hopefuls, the die-hard fans who absolutely know every Sondheim lyric but pretend they don't. Instead of telling one story, the show unfolds in musical moments that map the emotional roller coaster of loving this art form. The early training optimism, the audition heartbreak, the career compromises, the inside jokes only theater kids truly understand. And trust me, it gets them. Elizabeth Mandel, Madeline Whitehead, Tyler Gallagher, and Sam Brackley are powerhouse vocalists who blend like a dream. No one's trying to steal the spotlight. The ensemble work is the spotlight. The harmonies are tight, the solos land with purpose, the sound in the room is genuinely thrilling. Directed and choreographed by Eamon Foley, the staging makes smart use of the Soho Playhouse space. It feels alive, it feels intimate, never feels small. What lingers after the curtain call is warmth. The show celebrates musical theater with affection and just enough snark to keep it honest. It knows the art form is not glamorous or fair, and it loves it anyway. I Wish My Life Were Like a Musical. Affectionate, funny, musically confident. And if you've ever belted in your car like you were at Radio City, this one's for you. This one gets a big happy face.
Here is I Wish My Life Were Like a Musical, the composer and lyricist Alexander S. Bermange speaking at BroadwayCon spontaneously after the original panel was canceled due to the blizzard on January 25th, 2026. This is the unedited version on YouTube. You can see the link below. Oscar Wilde's The Ideal Husband, brought to you by the Storm Theater that's back, is how the follies of youth will catch up to you and ruin you. Sir Robert Chilton, an undersecretary to the Foreign Office, is respected and loved by one and all for his upright nature and solid place in London 1895 society, until Mrs. Cheveley, a woman with a past, comes to ruin him with her past. His wife, Gertrude, is of such high moral superiority that any hint of scandal could not touch her ideal husband. What will happen when she discovers he is a mere flawed human being? And how will he ever get out of the scandal with his reputation intact, if not his marriage? This is full of wild, sparkling wit, Sandrina Sparagna's dazzling costumes, and Daniel Prosky's well-appointed set. The stupendous ensemble captured the divine nuances of Wilde's wit and this forgive all flaws play. I give this a happy face plus.
Coriolanus, Shakespearean tragedy about Caius Marcius, a brilliant but arrogant Roman general who despises the common people. Coriolanus is being done now at Theater for New Audience in Brooklyn, and it is an incredible revival. For those of you who don't know the story, he is hailed as a hero for defeating the Volscians, but his inability to play the game, to play the politician, leads to his banishment. He seeks revenge by aligning himself with the enemy, Tullius Aufidius. But what happens is he now joins his enemy to attack Rome, his own home, where his own family is. It's a very, very moving piece. It's all about pride, devotion to family, sometimes having to take a back seat to your own better judgment, even if that judgment is a little compromised. You have, as Caius Marcius Coriolanus, McKinley Belcher III. He does a very, very good job building the role of Coriolanus. To the point where you don't realize what he's capable of until he actually has to make a stand and tell the people that want him to become consul that he is not going to play the game. One of the most incredible performances you're going to see is Rosalind Ruff as Volumnia, his mother. She's just exquisite. People just really need to watch her. What she does is just really, really a work of art. Another standout is the woman who plays Tullus Aufidius. A lot of the gender roles that are traditionally given to men are given to women. Susanna Schatkowski, she plays Junius Brutus, one of the people that is arranging for his banishment. But Tullius Aufidius, played by Mickey Sumner, is a British actress living here in New York, gives an incredible performance as well. The production is just amazing. I give it very happy face for such a grim play, but really happy face.
At St. Anne's Warehouse is Milo Rao's Hate Radio, which recounts the role of a Hutu radio station, RTLM, in fomenting the heinous genocide of Tutsis in Rwanda by the Hutus. We get headphones at our seats to wear and listen to the participants with subtitles as though we are listening to the radio. First, we hear from a journalist who was there before the genocide started. She witnessed the atrocities and, like everyone else, listened to RTLM. One survivor told of the horrific way he was able to survive, while another survivor told what happened to her mothers and sisters and how she and another sister miraculously got through this nightmare. One of the broadcasters of RTLM recanted his life and finally told the truth of his complicity with what happened to the Tutsis and responsibility for that inconceivable genocide. It all started with the popular radio station RTLM that began calling the Tutsis cockroaches that must be exterminated. DJ Joseph, Cantano Habimana, Valerie Bamarecki, and Georges Rougiou, as the radio presenters, were relentless in their attacks on the Tutsis, likening them to Nazis and cockroaches and vilifying them so much that it built up a frenzy of everyone going after them, including children as young as 8, wanting to cut them up with machetes. Milo Rao and Jens Dietrich were very clever in putting on the Tutsis and the journalists first to set up the truth of what really happened. The broadcast was so insidious that it was hard at times to distinguish what was real and what wasn't. You would vote Nazis to me, and I automatically think that they are going to be the bad guys. But then you think back on the truth, and the Nazis in reality are the Hutus. In fact, Nazis' extermination was child's play to the unspeakable things the Hutus did. It was worse than Mengel's cruelty. This play is not for the faint-hearted, but it is vital in this day and age to guard against these vile, despicable dictators and their kind. It is truly contemptible how cruel and bloodthirsty people can be. If you can, you really must witness this. Happy Face Plus. Richard Chang's Yah Goy Vey, Adventures of a Dim Son in Search of His Wanton Father, is a delightful quest of a son in search of his Jewish father in New York City. The father abandoned his Chinese opera star mother, but don't worry, this one-man show is no tragic Madame Butterfly reenactment. We get to meet many diverse people and neighborhoods. Chang does imitations. His Jackie Mason is just as funny as the original, and we learn the many similarities between Yiddish and Cantonese words. For instance, Aya and Oy vey can both be used to show exasperation. Chang sprinkles the narrative with entertaining songs. He translates names into Cantonese and also tells us what they mean in English. Richard Chang is a very gifted performer. He may not be a Buddha delight, but he is a boy chick delight. This will leave you hungry for more. And I asked Tony to give his take as a non-Jewish person what he thought about all the Yiddish stuff. So this is not a review. His review can be found on Victor Gluck's Theater Scene. Happy Face Plus.
So Richard Chang is really ingenious. I do like a lot of what he did. And for a person who doesn't understand Yiddish, it doesn't really matter. If you've lived in New York as long as I have, you basically know the spiel. If you've ever heard Jackie Mason You know the spiel. It's a really, really cute blend of Chinese and Yiddish, and it's very sweet. And for people who don't know Yiddish, they will still feel really, really comfortable. You can be a New Yorker and have a great time.
Mark Sabat died unexpectedly February 7th, which has us all reeling. But he did have one review left over from one of his favorite theater companies, Elevator Repair Service, and he is one of the few people that can read James Joyce. He actually has read Ulysses. I did ask him about Finnegan's Wake, and he said, yes, that one he did have trouble with. But we will talk about more in other shows. But right now, this is going to be our tribute to him for now. Elevator Repair Service is presenting a dramatized reading of James Joyce's novel Ulysses, which follows Leopold Bloom, his wife Molly, and the student Stephen Dedalus around Dublin on Thursday, June 16, 1904. The reading follows the order of the book, omitting many sections, a jump ahead of the clock showing the day's progress, as well as a projection of the rapidly scrolling text, and an odd crunching sound mark the omissions. Scott Shepherd introduces the work, explains the procedure, and occasionally comments on aspects of the novel and critical reception of it. Various performers narrate the text while others as characters perform their dialogue. I had read the novel twice many years ago, but was amazed at how much I had forgotten. This performance reacquainted me with the Blooms' living daughter Millie and their son Rudy, who died in his infancy. Bloom's sense of loss and his longing for a son lead him to feel a fatherly connection to Stephen Dedalus. We follow Bloom's morning preparation of Molly's breakfast, his attending a funeral, his appearance at various eating establishments and bars, although he is abstemious. Later, he follows the drunken Dedalus through the red light district in the hallucinatory night town section of the novel. Here, the lighting, sound, and action go wild, and Bloom is aware of Molly's assignation with her lover Blazes Boylan. The novel and this performance end with Molly's feigned sensuous monologue. Joyce accepts and records all aspects of human bodies and their at times repugnant manifestations. The performers are clever and surprising in their illustrations of the numerous characters. Scott Shepherd is especially dazzling. I particularly enjoyed his loopy, loose-jointed ambulation as Blazes Boylan. While a reading of Joyce reveals its place in the Homeric oral tradition and makes much pop with clarity that is hard to achieve in silent reading, still, even in an abbreviated, nearly 3-hour presentation, it's hard not to feel overwhelmed and a bit worn down by the relentlessly complicated text. Mark gives this a happy face minus. Mine will be on the Facebook page, but here is Bina's reaction.
This is what I always loved about Mark Sabat. He wrote the greatest reviews, very, very detailed. And this is very necessary for Ulysses so we can have the knowledge of the details. But it is such a complex book. It's like wandering. Leopold Bloom, who's a Jewish person in Dublin in 1904, who takes this journey, which is kind of based on Odyssey by Homer, and he encounters many characters, and he's very aware, and he mentions the anti-Semitism taking place in 1904, and it makes you think it's still here. We are in 2026. So the thing is this, like, my favorite character was Stephen Dedalus. He was just so fantastically romantic, a poet, love of art, but at the same time very much disturbed about his family pain. He says a wonderful sentence: "History is a nightmare from which I am trying to awake." And Molly Bloom, she does a great stream of consciousness monologue for 48 pages in the book. Here it is much shortened, but it's a lovely thing to watch her doing that, and she does a wonderful job. Many actors are really, really good. Journey takes place in the bars, eating the food, going to the barber, and all those having sex and urinations and all that stuff. I enjoyed it very much. But at the same time, I was very distracted with this fast forwarding and the noise because I wanted to concentrate the words. Words is Ulysses. But I will give happy face minus.
Daniel Fish has recreated a 1993 debate between Kramer and Fauci on C-SPAN. Greg Sargent plays a moderator posing questions to Fauci, played by Will Brill, and Kramer, portrayed by Thomas J. Ryan, over the AIDS crisis and how not enough is being done to stop the plague, as Kramer refers to AIDS. You can see the love-hate relationship between the two men. Kramer is passionate in his condemnation of the president's inactions from Reagan to Clinton and can't stand it when Fauci gets all bureaucratic on him. Fauci, who has a hard time getting a word in edgewise with Kramer's constant impassioned interruptions, is just as frustrated as Kramer with the bureaucracy and trying to appease politically, but privately feeling the same as Kramer. Jenny Seastone represented all of the questions from the public, to the downright homophobic, to the grateful few who appreciate what both are trying to achieve. I always enjoy Daniel Fish's direction. It is quirky but true to the text. This 1993 televised encounter is a reminder how history keeps repeating itself. Politicians don't always do what is best in the public's interest, and the few who understand this need to stand up and fight for what is right and decent. It was fitting that in the audience I ran into all these friends of my best friend, John Mangano, who died of AIDS in '91. John had us put on his quilt, Killed by My Country. It was the opening night when I went, and Dr. Fauci was in the audience, which gave it even more gravitas. Happy face plus. Our next show will be March 7th. On demand, you can see Mint Theater's Crooked Cross until February 22nd and Irish Reps The Honey Pot until February 28th. Check out 59 Theaters and La Mama, lots going on there that you should see. Closing February 21st, the 10th Theaters, The Leverett and Midwest Porn with Matthew Maurer. Closing 28th, Without Mirrors at the Brick with David Greenspan. New Light Theater Projects Fog and Ice, an Evening of 31X by Eugene O'Neill and Esther Galbraith. Closing March 1st is Puppetopia at Here, Making a Show of Myself at Irish Rep, and the Dinosaurs at Playwrights Horizon. And closing March 7th is Cirque Swing with past favorite Ambrose Martos from Happy Hour at Hidden Chelsea Speakeasy. And it's a dinner and a show, and I can't wait to see that with Stephen Kearley.